All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Well, I guess it's evening. It's evening where I am. George, I'm on the.
Almost.
What are you? 4 o'clock? Is that right?
Yeah, 4 o'clock here in Seattle, so not
Very
quite
good.
there yet.
Okay. It's 7 o'clock for me. I'm in Savannah, Georgia, so
Mm.
it seems later than seven even. But anyway, all right. Let's give folks some time to come in, and we'll just tell you a little bit about tonight's webinar. So we're gonna do a little high level overview of financial aid and things for you to consider. I assume we have parents of underclassmen. We probably shouldn't assume that. So for those of you who have joined already, do us a favor and drop in the chat if you would. What year your student is graduating from high school. Do we have 26, 27, 28, 29? That way we have a sense of who we're talking to tonight. Drop in the chat what year your student is so we have a sense. All right, there's a 27, 27. I got some June. Looks like we got juniors. Okay, it's here, folks. It is here. It
You
is
are not too early. You are not too early.
sure.
You're, it's good that you're here. Glad that you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Oh, there's a 28. All right, good. Yeah, 28,
Great.
15, oh, 20. Okay. Very good. Okay. And why don't y'all let us know where you are? What state are you in? So we know if we're which
I'm in the state of confusion,
state of yeah, exactly. State of panic, probably.
panic, anxiety,
Yeah. All right.
red.
New York, New York, Georgia. Hey, I'm in Georgia. Good. Florida. Got a Seoul, Korea. Oh,
Wow.
I wonder what time it is there. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Looks like we got some folks from all over. Well, we have an hour scheduled tonight. We'll probably go about 45 minutes and maybe, give or take, and then probably have some time for some questions at the end. So just some housekeeping stuff before we jump in. Number one is, as I said earlier, we're going to do a high level view of like financial aid stuff. You probably have specific questions for your situation. We'll try our best to keep up with those, but it helps us a lot if you can put your questions in the Q&A, the question and answer, not the chat. So if you drop them in the chat, it's hard for us to keep up with that and answer them. So if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A, and whichever one of us is not talking, we'll try to keep up and answer as many of those as we can. And then the other way you can get your questions answered, if you do have questions, is we're gonna give you the opportunity to book a free 15-minute consultation with us. We'll put the scheduling link to our calendars here in the chat for everyone. And if you sign up, I think it's by midnight tonight, you can get a free 15-minute consultation with us. And on that consultation, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can and try to give you some advice for next steps. And if you happen to be interested in any of our services or anything like that, if you get after tonight's webinar, if you're like, oh my gosh, just hire us, just take, can we just hire you to get this off our plate? We could talk, about our services if that interests you. So, all right, let's see here. And oh, thanks, Korch put the link into the chat already. Fantastic. All right, let's see here. So, we should probably do some introductions, right? Probably do some introductions here. My name is Jason Slone. I'm one of the college funding experts here at College Aid Pro. A little bit about my background. I've actually had been in higher ed for over 20 years. This is kind of crazy. I became a professor in 2002, so I've been a professor ever since then. I still teach a couple classes, and I was a dean for 7 years. So I always joke I'm the former dean that spills the beans for parents on how this all works, so you can get some more money. I've been a financial advisor since 2008, and I got into college planning for selfish reasons. I'm a parent of three. I've got a senior in college, a sophomore in college, and a ninth grade in high school. But I got into this 5, 6 years ago now because my oldest was starting to look at college. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for this? I need to get some financial aid. And so took a deep dive into college planning and just fell in love with it. And so totally love doing it. And College Aid Pro is a fantastic organization and happy to be part of it. So that's enough about me. Court, you want to tell them about you and your background, and then maybe you can
Yeah,
get off.
yeah. My name's Michael Korch. I'm in Seattle, and I'm the first to go and the only to go to person to go to college in my family. Both my parents came from Europe, traversed the world during war and such, and didn't really have the chance for school. So, as you can imagine, school became very, very important to their children. in their eyes, and was lucky enough to be able to go to college. And I've got three kids. I have now a 24-year-old and twin 21-year-old girls that are seniors in college this year. So just maybe a little ahead of a few of you out there. But yeah, really similar situation to Jason. Like, holy Toledo, we keep shoving money in the 529, but that doesn't make it any more affordable. It helps you to pay some of the bill. So we had to kind of figure that out too. And I found College Aid Pro 5 or 6 years ago and was enormously helpful to my wife and I. And so now I'm in a place where I can help to kind of give back and spend time with families, and it's been awesome. It's been great.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and jump in? I'm going to share slides here, and like I said, I'll try to um, keep up with the Q&A. But
Awesome.
there we go.
Okay, so the plan for tonight, so we're going to cover some of the big milestones in the process of financial aid. Financial aid is kind of a big umbrella, and it's got a lot of different things that fall under it. We'll be talking about that tonight. What's really important is how does this going to work for your family? Because really every family is different. Depending on income and assets and the academic record of your kiddo, there's different opportunities, different possibilities for discounts and so forth. And we'll be talking about a number of those today. And finally, depending on how, if your shoulders are up by your ears and this is an anxiety driving situation, Jason and I totally get it. Totally get it because we're there as well right now. But we like to say action absorbs anxiety. Like, don't just participate, casually listen tonight and set it on the back burner. This is kind of a step in the direction of starting to learn a little bit more about this and a little bit of literacy in this area and getting your hands on some data. It's really the pieces are going to start to come together for you and be really helpful. All right. So one of our claims to fame as far as College Aid Pro is concerned is we've got arguably the best software in the industry. It's used by tons of financial planners and college planners. And being that I'm old and have a whitish beard, I remember when I needed to book a trip to fly to Savannah to see Jason, I'd have to call every airline one at a time, right? It's kind of that way now with college. Hey, do you want to see the price of the school? You got to go to every net price calculator on every website and put in your same information every time and get a kind of a not a super great estimate actually. Well, CAP kind of solved that problem. So we like to say averages are dangerous. The George Washington says that university says our average is $28,000. Well, I want to know if I'm the 28,000 or if I'm the 98,000. In that math. So that's kind of the great thing about this software. You put in some information about your financial situation. You put in some information about the talent profile of your student, and all the prices of the schools adjust. And it's a very strong, accurate estimate of what you're going to pay for school, the net price of school. And it's not everything. You still have to choose a school with the right majors. You got to make sure that they find their people and have a great social emotional place. But the money part's a big part. And that's kind of one of our specialties. So we'll kind of Jason will take us through a quick kind of fly by a little later in the presentation tonight. So I encourage you to go to mycap.collegeaidpro.com, get a free account, no charge. We want everyone to be able to use it, put in information. You can compare up to 3 schools and start to see that. Okay. All right, so let's kind of get onto the foundation layer and make sure we're all talking about the same stuff. So what is financial aid? It's a discount to the sticker price. When you go into the car dealership and you see the sticker and there's that number, there might be some discounts that come from that depending on the time of the year, time of the month, how things are going in that business. Very similar to the college scene. So there's 3 kind of buckets that we talk to that fall under the umbrella of financial aid. There's 2 that we really love, especially as parents, because they're free money. It's the first on the left and the middle one. The third one is good, but not nearly as good. And I'll talk about that in a second here. So moving left to right, need-based grants. Anytime you hear grant, that's a free award. You're not going to have to pay those dollars back. And there can be grants that come from the federal government, from your state, from the actual institution or the school that you're applying to, or a combination of those. It's based on the financial position of the parent or parents or guardians, if you will, as well as the student's financial situation. So that's an important one to know about. The middle bucket is merit-based scholarships. You may have heard of that before. That's fully separate from the financial situation of the family. This is based on the talent profile of your student. Usually it comes from the rigor of their high school curricula. How many APs did they take? Or what's their GPA and their standardized test scores? Those are the things that we're used to thinking about. But there's other parts of a talent profile. Could be that they're a killer cellist. It could be that, they're the Indiana University quarterback. And they might get a lot of merit-based scholarship in that case. I actually don't know if they did or not, but I can only imagine. Um, so we love that one as parents. I know I did. My daughters have some scholarships because that's not just for 1 year. These need-based grants, it's like you got to turn in your FAFSA and your CSS profile, your financial aid forms every year in order to be considered for a grant every year. But the scholarships are typically for 8 semesters, if we will, for all 4 years. As long as you maintain an agreed upon GPA, it's usually like a 3.0 GPA, and you stay a full-time student, those dollars will be there every year for 4 years. But it's just 4 years. So if you have a student, unfortunately, in the 5-year plan, that scholarship's not going to go into year 5. So it's one thing to remember. Okay, self-help, helpful to pay the bill, but it's not free money. So you fill out the FAFSA, your student is guaranteed the federal direct student loan. They're eligible for work study, which is like it sounds, it's an exchange for their time. They get a job in the cafeteria or in the library and they make a minimum wage. And if that's something you want them to have some skin in the game, just make sure that you have the conversation beforehand. Like, is this pizza and beer money, or is this dollars that are going to go towards tuition or books that quarter or semester too? Okay, Jason, next slide.
I do want to point out that where I went to undergrad,
Mm.
small liberal arts college in Ohio called College of Worcester, we had bagpipe scholarships there because we were the Fighting Scots. And so, hey, if you're a talented bagpipe player, you want to put the College of Worcester on your list.
It just went to the top of my list, just like that.
Yeah, our football team was not very good, but everybody went to the football game through the halftime show and see the bagpipe players, and then everybody went back. So
I love it.
anyway.
All right. Okay, so now here's a little bit of math. Don't worry, it's really straightforward. And frankly, this is one of the few universal things that go across all the schools. Like, you learn this slide tonight, and you're going to have a much better understanding of kind of the goals of this process. So we start with the cost of attendance, the sticker price. And that's kind of the all-in price of the school. So tuition, room and board, books and supplies, fees, everything you'd be direct billed by a school for. And from that, you subtract something called the Student Aid Index, the SAI. It's really it's the output of these financial aid forms, the FAFSA, for example. Used to be called the expected family contribution. Occasionally, you'll see some schools still using that language, means the same thing. And essentially, it's, I could take you to the FAFSA site that literally has 180 pages in a PDF that talk all about this is all the math and everything we consider in order to spit out this number. And as you can imagine, it's a lot of different attributes, income and assets and academic things and so forth. But it's basically a number that's kind of what the colleges and the government believe you can pay for 1 year of school. So as in a quick example, if the cost of attendance at a kind of high-end competitive school is $90,000 a year, and your SAI says that you can pay $40,000 a year, then you've got this gap of $50,000, and that's what it equals, this need, the amount of financial aid your family is potentially eligible to receive. And that's an important kind of asterisk there. Yes, that is a gap. And the next question, I know when I was touring with my daughters and I'd see this gap, like, okay, this school's really expensive. We can only pay this amount. My first question is, do we pay for that gap? Does the school pay the gap? Do we meet in the middle and wrestle for it? Like, how does this work? And the answer is the most common answer in college planning, it depends. Because some schools have very deep pockets and they use their endowment dollars to go after great kiddos that they want to join the community, and they use their dollars that way. Other schools, like I'm 3.5 miles from the University of Washington here in Seattle, an amazing institution, but they don't use their dollars, to give a big award to bring students to campus. It's kind of a research institution. That's not their priority for dollars, really. So this is the math and kind of what it means. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. All right. So as we consider this student aid index and the math and, what comprises, what are they looking at, the government for the FAFSA or CS's profile for these kind of small set of high-end schools? Well, first is we'll talk about assets, financial assets. And one of the really important things that differentiate here is who owns the asset. So on the left, where the student owns the asset, the assessment rate is very high, 20, 25%. We've even seen some a little bit higher than 25%. What does that mean? Well, God forbid grandma passes away and leaves $100,000 to this person, to the student, to their grandchild. The math basically says, hey, we're assuming that 25% of that is going to go to the price of college next year. That's a huge impact on, obviously, on the dollars for you. However, if that same 100,000 were actually owned by the parent on the right side of the screen, the highest assessment rate is 5.64%. So for that $100,000, the assumption is only $5,640 that would go towards that student aid index number. So big difference. It's something to think about, who owns the asset. Now, it's also important to realize when we talk about assets, financial assets, these are non-retirement assets only. So the traditional, qualified accounts, the 401ks, 403bs for educators, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, those are essentially off the books. Those are protected accounts. There's not an assumption that you should be able to, and there's no expectation that you'll be paying from your retirement for this. And well, when do they assess, the value of this asset to determine how much is going to be, paid? It's what they call the current value. So it's essentially when you guys will fill out the FAFSA. If you've got a 27 kiddo, it's going to be the next October, if you will. And at that time, when you submit, that's when they want to, look at your statement and put that value. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and I would just add there,
Yeah.
just emphasizing, if you're the parent of an underclassman, a junior or sophomore, this means you have time to do some, repositioning of your assets if needed, or if possible, in order to, to be honest with you, make yourself look poor. Because this is the one time in your life when you want to look as poor as possible from a financial aid perspective. And so this is one of the reasons why we always offer to parents to meet with us for 15 minutes or so, because if you do have substantial non-retirement assets, whether it's in the bank or brokerage accounts or real estate or whatever, or you got trust, you got 529 plans, which we're going to talk about in a sec here. It's really a good time for you to talk with us. That gives you enough time to be able to, perhaps move things around, and so you don't have things in the wrong places from a financial aid perspective, and just, end up hurting yourself and potentially losing out on aid. So it's a very common and easy to make mistakes. So feel free to, if you do have some assets and you're not sure, like, what should I do with them? I don't want to get hurt financially, talk to us.
It's a really good point, Jason. Thank you. Okay, so some of you in the audience may have a 529 account for your student. It's a college savings account that's state specific. It's a wonderful program, where you can put in the dollars and take them out for qualified education, not have to pay on the gain of that account. It's for qualified education expenses, and it's great. This is really one of coming back to that idea of who owns the asset. this is one of these areas where we see this mistake made all the time. And it makes sense that this mistake happens. It's not a surprise. Um, who owns the 529? Well, it's a custodial account. It has to be an adult, and depending on the state, it's usually over 21 years of age. It's usually a parent, one of the parents, might be a grandparent or even an aunt or an uncle that can own the 529. So when the time comes and going to put those dollars in and say, I have these dollars to be assessed, please don't put that in as an asset owned by your student. It's FBO, as they say in financial services, for the benefit of the student, but the grown up is the actual account owner. And again, that's going to lower that to that 5.64%. Um, and another really important point, and we'll start to talk more about on some of our slides here, these two financial aid forms, we kind of made reference to them. We'll go a little bit deeper into them. Essentially, all the schools in the country require you to file the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. It comes from the U.S. Department of Education. All the schools take the FAFSA. There's of the 4,000 schools, there's a really small number of schools. I think it's less than 300. I would call them the name brand schools. They're the Ivies, the elite private liberal arts schools. I mean, it's an incredible list of schools. It's an and, not an or. It's like they want FAFSA and they want this secondary app called the CSS profile. And we're going to start to talk about some of the difference from a requirements perspective. This is why we help lots of families, because there's just a lot of nuance to some of these things. So, for example, if you own your home, your primary residence, Seattle is in a very expensive real estate market here. I'm about 4 miles from Bill Gates, his little bungalow of $150 million on Lake Washington. If Bill were to fill out the FAFSA and their student would go to the University of Washington, he would not have to provide any details about his primary residence, because for FAFSA schools, primary residence is off the books. They want to know about all other real estate, rental houses, condos, vacant lots, all that stuff. They want to know about that. But this is a difference now with CSS profile. I kind of compare that one to more lifting up the rocks and looking for piles of cash. It's more invasive. They're going to ask a lot more questions. Did anybody give $1 to your student at any point, that can be used? They want to know about it. And these particular amazing institutions, so Syracuse, the University of Miami, NYU, Boston College, they all assess primary residence, all other real estate, everything, and they assess it at the full 5%. So it's essentially, if you happen to be fortunate enough to own your home and have been in your home for a bunch of years where you have now home equity, hey, that $500,000 in home equity, Boston College says that's essentially a savings account. And we're probably going to be interested in some of that coming towards us. So depending upon your financial situation, that may affect your priority or decisions of some of the schools you look at. It's going to affect your list. Jason, anything you want to add to that, or?
No, other than just I hate it. Drives me crazy. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? University of Miami, Syracuse, come on. You're going to make parents, take money out of their house to pay for college. It drives me crazy. So anyway, probably not,
And
that's not very helpful for parents other than I feel your
well,
pain.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like,
But the good news is that's a really small set of schools. They're very attractive schools, very popular schools. They're kind of North Stars for a lot of families. So they run into it. And the other thing I'll say is that you don't have to memorize like, well, this is the formula for Boston College. They account this. That's kind of what our MyCAP software is for. Like it's like ragu sauce. It's all in there. We got all the business rules and how they assess all this. So that's why you put in your information once and all those um, prices will adjust for you.
yeah, and to me, that's the other thing I would say is take home message about home equity and primary residence is you need to know at the beginning of the process which schools are going to ding you on your if you have home equity and which ones won't, because just like your kid is doing the search for good fit colleges based on major and size and location and stuff, you as the parents should also be looking at schools from a financial fit perspective and like Court said, if you live in the Seattle area or New York, Boston, Chicago, Austin, something like that, and your house is worth a ton of money because of the real estate values locally, you would want to know ahead of time, like, hey, if you put University of Miami on the list, you should know, they're going to assess that. Whereas maybe you avoid those types of schools because they're bad financial fits for your particular situation. That's kind of thing. That's what college financial planning really is all about, is like trying to navigate how, which schools do what and how do what financial aid system they use the CSS profile, do they use the FAFSA, do they take home equity, do they not, or what. It can get very, very, very confusing. But if you're going to shop smart for college and treat it like an investment, which it is a huge investment, tons of money on the line, you want to have a lot of clarity around this so you can just be an informed consumer, and so this home equity one, it gets a lot of parents.
And I think the worst call to take that I get, and Jason, you can chime in on this just quickly, is it's January now. It's a family with a senior, high school senior, and they call and they book an hour, and they're like, "Oh my, we just got the award letters back, and like we can't afford any of these dream schools that my son spent all this time doing the admissions and he's getting into them, but we can't. I had no idea it was going to be this expensive or expensive this one was versus that one." And there's frankly, there's just no reason for that anymore. There's so much of this data and there's tools like MyCAP. You shouldn't be surprised by a $400,000 bill. That's kind of a shame on us. And at least there's tools now that can help us. And whether you have a 27, 28, 29, you could do this now and at least get some idea of how the prices are
Yeah,
different.
yeah, great point.
Okay, business owners. We work with a ton of business owners because there's a number of things to consider here as well. Number one, for example, with FAFSA, uh, really for family-owned businesses where there are, um, unless there are more than 100 people, in this company, it's off the books essentially from an asset valuation. They're going to want to know about the income you make from it if it's a primary driver of your income. But for family-owned business, if you have less than 100, it's just off the books. If you don't need to worry about it. And CSS profile, you're probably gonna, for the way we've been talking about it, you might get a feel for now. Like CSS wants to know about every business. I've got my fabulous college planning empire here. I'm in my basement with my MacBook, and
That's why you live next to Bill Gates. That's why, right?
that's why exactly. I'm going to sneak in there at some point. So my business, if I don't show up to work, like there is no value to my business. When I filled out the FAFSA and the CSS for my kids, business value was zero because I have no assets, I have no inventory. I had essentially nothing in business savings. I would move that into my own savings. So the business itself didn't really have any assessed value.
Yeah. This is another one of those where, if you're self-employed, you probably want to talk to us because it can get very complicated very fast
Yeah.
when it comes to expenses and valuation and all kinds of stuff. But if you are self-employed, own a business, of course you want your business to be as worth as much as possible, except right now in this stage in your life. And if you're a parent of an underclassman and you are a business owner, you got some time to plan, but you want to probably talk to us sooner than later because if there's anything you can do to avoid hurting yourself from a financial aid perspective, you probably want to get started as soon as possible.
I've also had a lot of conversations this year with families that for one reason or another, they have a significant number of like rental properties, whether they're single family or it's a duplex, triplex, a multi-unit. It's a blessing, but boy, there are some assessment value questions and issues we have to cover and kind of go through and not be surprised. That really supports that as
Yeah,
well.
I'm working with a family who reached out to get help because um, I wish they had talked to us before, but the grandparent passed away and gifted a family home to all of the siblings, and they'd own it for a long time, and so there's no, whatever, no, the basis points and all that kind of stuff is low, but and so that hurt. They reported that on the CSS profile incorrectly. So it looks like she's got million dollar asset kind of thing, and the colleges are like, "Woohoo, we'll take all that from you," and that's not at all the case. And so it's easy to get tripped up on that kind of stuff because it was listed as incorrect. It was a business because it was an LLC, but it was siblings, and it's a very complicated case.
Goodness.
So those kinds of
Yep.
things can trip you up on these financial aid application forms and cause you to lose money.
Absolutely. Here's another group of work with lots of divorced or separated families, kind of split families, different rules pertaining to FAFSA versus CSS profile. Working with families that, hey, 2 years ago, when I have to report my income, this 2 year look back, we were married, but now we're not married. So what do I do now? Like, which parent should we? Rules changed very significantly in 2024. It used to be very much based on kind of the traditional custodial parent kind of definitions, like where does the kid live for 6 months in a day or more? Who pays the most money? Who writes, adds them as a dependent on their taxes. Like a lot of that has changed. So that's an area, that's a slightly different set of rules for FAFSA versus CSS profile. CSS profile in their desire to want to see all of the resources available. If a biological set of parents divorce and each of the mom and dad get remarried, there are schools that are going to say, we want to see tax forms for all four parents. Hey, you have a prenup that says you're not going to, provide any help for this. That doesn't involve us. We're not part of that agreement. We want to see everything. So it's just, or we want to help you through that and understand kind of what your responsibilities are. And again, may affect some schools that you work with or on the list.
Yeah, another complex situation where you might want to get some help. Easy to lose out on aid there if you don't navigate that piece of it. So why don't we take a little pause in the slideshow, and I'll share kind of a window or quick demo of College Aid Pro if I can figure out how to work technology. I'll show a little demo of College Aid Pro here so everybody can get a sense of what this looks like. I think it here, blah blah blah. Does that look about right to you?
Coming, it's coming.
All
I
right.
think there it is.
Okay, fantastic. So this is College Aid Pro. This is a dummy account, and the way it's going to work is, everybody can get a free MyCAP account, and you can put up to 3 schools for free. But you're going to fill out a profile, put your student information in there, parent information. You can even build out a little budget just to help you. But once you put your information in there, these questions mirror the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And so the system will project a student aid index number for you. As Michael said earlier, your student aid index is how they determine whether or not you qualify for need-based aid. So like in this particular case, we put in the family information, FAFSA schools only use the FAFSA. That'll generate a federal SAI. So for this family, it's 65K. Whereas the CSS profile in this family's particular case, their SAI is much lower. Okay, so this is the CSS generates what's called the institutional SAI. And the reason why that's important is because now you can look at it and be like, oh, okay, well, we're actually being expected to pay less potentially at CSS profile schools, which is sometimes counterintuitive for parents because a lot of times CSS profile schools have a higher sticker price, but you're going to get more aid, so it ends up being less expensive. So anyway, and then you can list your schools in here. If you have a premium account, which is $5 a month, by the way, $4.99 a month, you can do an unlimited number of schools, but you can do 3 for free. So we always say, start there. But then, once you've got your SAI, then you can start to project. The system's going to project out, what kind of financial aid you're looking at. This is Iowa State. They meet about 80% of needs, 75% of that with grants. 45% of the students get a scholarship of about $6,500 on average. So for this family, you're looking at 46 to go there, but you might get 14 in aid with a net cost of kind of 32. So that's what Korch had a great analogy earlier. Like this is instead of having to go out to every single website and hunt and peck and try to figure all this out, this overwhelming stuff, MyCap just makes it so much more convenient and efficient and gives you clarity around costs. So again, if you don't have a free MyCap account, go out there. We put the link in the chat, create one. And like I said, you can actually upgrade to a premium for $4.99 a month. And then you can do an unlimited number of schools if you have, if you're one of those kids that's got lots and lots and lots of schools on the list. Oh my gosh, did I tell you that set the record this year, Michael? One,
No.
one of my clients, the parents, the student applied to 29 schools.
Oh my
I
God.
tried to talk about him, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Yeah, 29 schools. I think that's set the
that's too many. That's too many. Just the application fees at thousands of
uh,
dollars. It's
yeah.
crazy.
And the essays and the oh my goodness, right? So okay, back to the presentation here. Can you see this? Am I back on the screen, Michael?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Okay, so let's talk a little. Thank you for all of that. That's great. We'll switch gears and kind of switch roles here. Um, so let's say you use your MyCap, you put in all your financial information, and you realize, oh my gosh, we make so much money, or our assets are we have so much in assets that we're not going to qualify for any need-based aid. We're out of luck, right? Well, no, not necessarily. You just need a different strategy. So again, as I said earlier, like this is why you got to know how all the financial aid works at different schools, and every school is different. So you can, understand where you're going to be a good financial fit, not just a good academic social fit for the kid, but a good financial fit for the parents. So if you do have a super high SAI, you're not going to get any need-based aid. Well, what you're going to want to do is look for schools that give merit aid. So as Court said earlier on, there's two kinds of gift aid. That's free money that brings the cost of college down. There's need-based and there's merit-based. Well, if you're not going to get any need-based and cost is a concern and you want to get the cost down, then you're going to look for schools that give merit-based aid, okay? Because merit-based aid is completely independent of financial need. And so here we've got just four examples here, Case Western and Denison. By the way, those are in the rivals of the College of Worcester, my undergrad, we same conference. But Alabama, they do a good job of scholarships. Willamette out on the West Coast, excuse me, they do a great job. And so, if you're a high SAI family and you're not going to get needs-based aid, you know what schools you that are not a good financial aid fit for you? The ones that don't give any merit scholarships at all. And we're talking about the Ivies, the Ivy Pluses, Notre Dame, Northwestern, MIT, Harvard, all those kinds of schools, zero. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see families make. One of the biggest is they'll come to me and they're like, my kid's superstar 36 ACT, 4 point this, and have cured cancer and started a venture capital firm, and they're the greatest kid on the planet. They're going to get a full ride to Harvard, right? I'm like, no, you're going to get zero in aid. You're going to be full pay at Harvard. They're not giving you a penny because they don't give scholarships. And parents are shocked by this. And then it's too late. The kid has fallen in love, and oh, I got to go to the Ivies, or else my life will be over, and I'll never be a success. And then parents are like, oh, right, if you get in, we'll figure it out. But we tell you this, not to discourage you or anything, but just to, eyes wide open. Like, if you're a high SAI family and you got a super bright kid, schools like Willamette, Alabama, Case, Denison, they will throw money at your kid to go there so you can get the cost down. But if your kid wants to go to an MIT or a Stanford or Harvard or Notre Dame or Northwestern and you're a high SAI, get your checkbook out because you're going to be probably full pay at those kinds of places. They're not going to give you a penny of help. So just telling you that so we're trying to help parents again, shop smarter for college. And this is, I just see this a lot. It breaks my heart when great families with great kids mistakenly think they're going to get a big scholarship from Notre Dame or something like that. And and then the kid falls in love with Notre Dame and it's 100 grand. They're like, what do we do? I'm like, well, so, okay. Now, if you are going to use this strategy of trying to find schools that give merit aid, one of the things you can think about doing as a planning strategy, it's what we love to do is give parents like, tips and strategies on how to lower the cost, is apply to competing schools. Now, what that means is schools that are competing with each other for the same types of students. So I'll go back to this slide before. The Denison, Case Western, and Worcester, where I went to college, they're all competing with the same students. So if I was, my kid was interested in Denison, I would say, hey, bud, throw an application in a Case and throw an application in a Worcester, because if Worcester gives you a bigger scholarship, you potentially go back to Denison and say, hey, can you make, Worcester beat you? Can you match that or beat it? Kind of thing. But for that strategy to work, you have to know which schools are in competition with each other. Okay. So Denison is not competing with Yale. So that's not going to work. You can't go to Yale and say, hey, Denison gave me a scholarship. Can you beat it? That's not going to work. So, you want to understand like types of schools and the groupings of schools by type. The Ivies all compete with each other. Then you got the big public universities, and then you got private schools. And so, depending on what types of schools your student is targeting, try to find some schools that those schools are competing with, and potentially think about applying there, even if you're not interested in going there, just for the sake of leveraging scholarship offers down the road. Now, here's the other thing: is parents are like, "Well, we make too much money, we're not getting financial aid. Why should I even file the form? It's a complete waste of time." Right? And the answer is you should always file the forms. Okay, that's our answer, at least at College Aid Pro. And here's why. If you don't submit the FAFSA and the CSS profile, you could be inadvertently losing out on financial aid you could have gotten. In other words, you could be leaving money on the table. And let me give you three cases of how this can happen. NYU, they give merit scholarships, but they won't give them to you unless you file the FAFSA and CSS profile. So if you don't file it, your kid qualified for a scholarship, you won't get the scholarship. You've left money on the table. Santa Clara, they're on the left. Santa Clara is one of many schools now where if you don't file your FAFSA and apply for financial aid in the freshman year, the first year, they won't let you apply for financial aid in years 2, 3, or 4. And you need to know if schools do this or not, the schools on your list, because some parents want to play this game where they're like, "Oh, we won't apply for financial aid the first year, and that'll give my kid a better chance of admissions," which it might. But then we'll apply in years 2, 3, and 4, and then kind of trick them that way. And in school, a lot of schools are like, "No, you can't do that." Okay. And then the other one is Oklahoma is a good case of this. Where if you don't apply for financial aid, if you don't file the forms, you can't do appeals. And we're going to talk about appeals here in just a second. Very important part of the process to get more financial aid to get the cost of college down. But if you don't file the FAFSA, they're like, "Sorry, you can't do an appeal for more money." So, okay. So to reiterate that, why you should submit the forms is number one, you might be eligible for need-based aid, you just don't realize it. I have this conversation with parents all the time. They're like, "Oh, we make 150,000, we're not going to get any need-based aid." I'm like, "No, let's run the numbers. Turns out you will." Good thing we caught that. Again, second, like NYU, you have to file to be considered for merit aid. This is true at a lot of schools. Like Santa Clara, number three, it might be your only chance to get aid. If you don't apply the first year, they're not going to let you apply years 2, 3, and 4. The fourth is if you're going to appeal the award, and again, I'm going to walk you through that here in a sec. To be considered for an appeal, you have to have the FAFSA file, the CSS profile as well at those schools. And lastly, we're not going to talk a lot about loans tonight, but just put it on your radar. Here's another shocking thing for parents. The only student loan that your student can take without you co-signing and being legally responsible for the debt is the Federal Direct Student Loan, the FDSL. Okay, that comes from the federal government, Department of Education, and it's capped at $27,000 total for 4 years. That's it. $5,500 first year, 65 second year, 7,500 years 3 and 4. Which means if your kid goes to a very expensive school and you don't have enough saved or can't cash flow out of pocket, and you're going to have to take a bunch of loans, they're going to be your loans. Anything above 27K will be your loans, parent loans. Okay. But if your student is going to need loans and going to take loans, that 27K, they have to file the FAFSA to be able to take the loan. Okay. All right. Now, if you are a parent of a junior, maybe even sophomore, I don't know, this is probably on your radar. Should we apply early decision? So, not to get too much in the weeds on admission stuff, but you can apply early decision, early action, regular decision, typically, right? And early decision is very popular these days, especially if your student's not quite sure they can get in, right? They're on the bubble admissions wise in terms of their grades and test scores. So you think, well, we'll go early decision. That gives me first shot, first round. And so therefore a better chance of getting in. Well, we always say caution. Here's why. Okay. Yes, you might get a better chance of getting in, but you're probably going to pay more. And again, I'm former dean that spills the beans. This is a money maker for colleges. Colleges have done this to make money off of parents, and it's basically a bargain. We'll let your kid in, but you're going to pay more. Okay. And if you're actually bored after this webinar is over, go out and Google the class action lawsuit against 32, I think it is, colleges in the country that are under awarding parents through this ED process. So it's my soapbox. Should your kid go ED? Okay, if you know for sure that's the only college your kid wants to go to, 100%. Okay, that's part one. And part two is you're willing to pay whatever it is they stick you with in terms of the bill. If cost is not a concern and you have an unlimited budget, then fine, go ED. But if cost is a concern, you're trying to keep, the cost down, you may put yourself at disadvantage if you go ED. And I've had numerous parents over the last month who've booked an hour or reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, my kid got into ED, woohoo!" But there's no way we can afford it. I'm like, well, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're kind of in a pickle now. So, Corch, what are your thoughts about ED? Those are my biases.
Yeah, yeah. I think you framed it really well. Unfortunately, this is completely a construct of the schools to, manipulate families' desire to get into a great institution. I mean, it's a genuine desire, but it's a gaming thing, It's like you start to and Jason and I see this. We have conversations in our staff meetings about the amount of the freshmen, the percentage of the freshman class at some of these schools that are accepted in the ED round. It might be two-thirds of some of these brand name schools that we know about. And why is that? It's because they can command that price. There's a line out the
Yeah, show me
door.
the money.
Yeah. So I think one of the really important takeaways, and it's again, 27s, 28s, 29s, it's a blessing for you, is that while we see families that just haven't cast a wide enough net for schools. There's 4,000 schools in the country. How many do we actually know? How many do we know? I know the UW, it's been here forever. I'm born and raised in Seattle. There's some other schools. I probably knew 5 or 10 schools growing up. Maybe your parents are involved in higher education and they know 100 schools. There's 4,000 schools. So take advantage of the software, take advantage of the time to do research. And I know there are attributes, we don't want to go to that part of the country, or these schools they don't have the major. And that's good. That's part of kind of the whittling process that you're going to do. But boy, cast a wide net to start, and you will be shocked at, you don't have to be a 4.0 student, like Jason said, and 1400 on the SAT. I'm working with a family right now, a 3.0 student. Guy wants to play soccer. He doesn't know if he's good enough to play D3 soccer. A pretty good student. I think he had a 1200 on the SAT, and there's a few schools, $30,000 scholarships. I mean, that's incredible because the fact of the matter is that supply and demand, there are more seats at schools than there are, if you excuse my language, butts to go in the seats now with kind of the baby bus that we're going through.
Yeah, that's the BS degree, right? Butts in seats. All right, so we've been talking about sort of the process. Let's get in the nitty gritty of the forms themselves. So if you're a parent of a 27, um, this every school is going to require the FAFSA. So just get ready to file the FAFSA. You're going to file the one FAFSA and list all the schools on it. And you'll do that studentaid.gov. It's going to go live in October. Okay, so be ready, get in there October or so. You don't have to be on there on October 1st, but it opens October 1st of senior year. So it's already January. Parents of juniors, you're 9 months away from being in the thick of this, and it's going to sneak up on you fast. And the FAFSA is connected to the IRS database, so it's going to pull the tax returns of the prior year, which means if your kid's going to college in 27, the 25 tax returns are what's going to automatically import to the FAFSA. And Coach talked a little bit about divorced parents, separated parents earlier. When it comes to the FAFSA, only one parent has to file. Okay. And that is the parent who provides the most financial support. So there's a planning opportunity. If you are divorced or separated, talk to us because it's a huge mistake I see a lot of families make is they get this wrong and they lose financial aid because the wrong parent files the FAFSA. Okay. Now, how do you file the FAFSA? Your kid's going to have to create an account because they're actually the one applying. And then the parent's going to have to create an account because they're the contributor to the kid's account. So both the kid and the parent, one parent has to create an account and get an FSA ID and make sure you write down all your login and passwords and all that kind of stuff so you need it. Okay. And again, it goes live October 1st. Now, the CSS profile, we've been talking about that tonight. Same thing, it's going to go live in October. So, almost, well, 8 months almost basically. Um, and several hundred colleges require it. Some differences between the CSS profile. The home equity is assessed on the CSS profile. And schools like Syracuse, Miami, they're going to look at 100% of it. Divorced and separated families, big difference. Both parents have to file. You got to understand how this works because, if you say you got one parent that makes a lot of money and the other one doesn't, I mean, this could get really complicated and tricky in terms of financial aid. But whereas the FAFSA only one parent has to file, CSS both have to file. Okay. Now, you can request a non-custodial parent waiver. So if you're in an unfortunate situation where the other parent's no longer around or that kind of thing, you could request a waiver for the non-custodial parent to not have to file. But it can be hard to get that approved. You gotta, there's a whole process for that. And if you have that situation, talk to us because we can help you with that. We do a lot of those every year where we're helping parents get that waiver approved or try to get that waiver approved if the non-custodial parent's not cooperating or whatever else. Business owners, I have bad news for you. Man, you want to block out some time because if you put down, yep, I own a business, it's going to go blah, 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 tons of more questions for you. And it is so invasive. Basically, all I can say is the CSS profile is just way more complicated, a lot more questions. My joke is, you can probably finish the FAFSA in a glass of wine, but you might want to get out the whole box when it comes to the CSS profile. That's my joke. Just so you know, it is administered by the CSS, by the College Board, excuse me, which is the company that administers the SAT. So parents don't need an account, other than non-custodial does need one. But you're going to do it into the student's account with the College Board where they've taken the SAT. Now, we talked a lot about assets and things you can position around and so forth. If you're a parent of a 2027, when it comes to the income side of things, it is what it is. 25 is over. If you're a parent of a 28 or a 29, talk to us now because there's potential things you can do to lower your AGI. But basically, parents of 27, again, I hate it's crazy, but you're late, right? You really need to start college planning from a financial aid perspective in the sophomore year of high school. You're too late on the income side now. It is what it is. They're going to pull the tax returns from 25. Um, and primarily the major driver is the AGI. That's why if you are a parent of a 28, talk to us because we can maybe give you some tips on how to lower your AGI to get more aid. It's the craziest thing, but how much financial aid potential you get in college is based on how much you earn in the sophomore year of high school, the spring of the sophomore year of high school. It's kind of crazy. Now, if your kid has a job, that's okay. You do get an income allowance of up to 11,770 for next year on the FAFSA. Differently on the CSS profile, though, that's another one of these tricky things like so if you own a business and you employ your kid or stuff like that, you might want to talk to us to make sure you're not making any mistakes there. Now, last thing we want to talk about here, we can wind it up and maybe have a few minutes for questions, is this. Um, the process is the FAFSA and the CSS profile are going to open in October for you. I'm talking to the parents of juniors. So it opens in the October of the senior year. You're going to file the FAFSA, file the CSS profile, and these are applications for aid. You're asking for aid, right? Then it's a waiting game for a few months. Then you'll start hearing from schools on where your student gets admitted. And then those schools are going to make you financial aid offers. And I use that word on purpose. These are offers. Okay. And you can appeal those offers. You don't have to necessarily settle for the offer they make you. Okay. And I'll, again, former dean that spills the beans here. There are a lot of schools that will under award you on purpose so they can make more money. Okay. It's just like buyers and sellers. If I'm, the buyer is trying to get the highest price and then, or excuse me, the lowest price, and the seller's trying to get the highest price. So you can appeal that in the spring of the senior year. And this is, we're doing tons of these right now for parents, and we're starting to thick of the appeal season. I'm working on one right now with Northwestern. I just finished up one with Chapman in California, doing another one with Fordham, another one with Trinity College. And so the appeals process is extremely important part of the process. It's your opportunity to potentially get more aid and get the cost down for all 4 years. Because if you can get it down in the first year, you might get, that could extend over 4 years. So, and the why the appeal process is so important is when you file the FAFSA on the CSS profile, the schools basically do math. They look at how much you make and how much you have. Okay, you get this much aid. That those forms don't really take into account things like cost of living, or you're dealing with aging parents, all these special circumstances that make it difficult for you to pay for college. I got a kid in private school, I have a kid with special needs. We got ongoing medical care. Whatever, let's just change in business. 2025 was an amazing year, but this year is going to be back to normal if I'm a business owner. Whatever, you got all these circumstances that aren't captured by those forms this is your opportunity to explain all that and make a case. And sometimes the appeal process can be two, three, 4 rounds. Like it can go from February through March to April. You're back and forth with all these schools to try to get the final offer from these schools as low as possible. And so just putting that on your radar, parents of juniors and sophomores, this is a long, complicated process. You start with, hey, what's our budget and what kind of financial aid models do these schools have? What's our SAI? Where are we going to get the most aid? Where are we going to get no aid? What's the net price going to be? File the FAFSA, file the CSS profile, do the appeals, and then et cetera. So it's this long drawn out process. It's not the way it used to be when I went to college. I was a first gen too, like you, Michael, and like I don't know, I signed up and went to college. It was like
Yep.
it was
Yep.
very simple. It's not that way anymore. So putting that on your radar, just so because it'll be here before you know it, parents of juniors. So, all right. Well, that is hopefully all of that was helpful. We again are offering to chat with all of you if you want to book a 15-minute free 15. We do this for every parent, offer it one free 15-minute consultation. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can for you. We do have full service options. Like for some, if you're the type of parent that you don't want to DIY it, if you're a DIYer, man, use our platform. It's going to help you. It's like TurboTax. But if you're the kind of person like, I don't want to deal with this, can we hire you to do some of this or all of this for? Yeah, absolutely. We do have full services, of course, and we'd be happy to chat with you about those on this consultation as well. But so there's a QR code. It's going to take you to our landing page. I think we can also maybe put the landing page in. I'm going to copy this, put that in the chat as well. Um, I guess we got about 5 minutes here. I don't know if we have time
I have
for
a question.
anything you want to
Jason, I have
wrap
a
up.
question for you. I'd love to hear your perspective
Sure.
on. I know on the Common App, there's a question about, are you going to file for financial aid? And I know for some families, it causes some, what's the right answer or what's the wrong answer? Could you add some clarity to that?
Yeah. So my bias on that one is if you don't apply for financial aid, you're going to pay full boat.
Okay. That's pretty
That's my
straightforward.
that's my simplistic way of thinking about it. But
Yeah.
I care deeply about the cost. And I know parents, I get it. I'm a parent. I want the best for your kids and you feel a lot of pressure. They got to go to the best college, the highest ranked or whatever. And this, potentially could give your kid a better shot at admissions if you say we're not, interested in financial aid. But um, I, as a financial planner, I'm biased in the opposite direction.
Yeah. It's not the only goal that people are funding usually in their life, right?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you have multiple kids, it could be 500,000 or more, right? And so, yeah,
You know, there's very few majors that we usually hear about where, for example, I remember one conversation I had was with a parent that the son wanted to be an investment banker and had the mental aptitude and the mathematical ability. And it's like, well, maybe Harvard should be in play, if you can
yeah,
afford it, because that's where they recruit. That's where those people hang out. Those are the folks you want to meet. But
mhm,
for 98% of the majors in the country, there are many great institutions that you can get a phenomenal education, find your people, not bust your budget, still retire on time, and not have to do that.
yeah. This is an investment, and I always tell my parents I work with, treat it like an investment. Treat it like an investment. Look at the ROI. What are the salary outcomes of graduates from those schools and those majors? And is it worth taking out loans or not? And who's going to take out the loans? And how do we, all those kinds of questions. All right. Well, I believe that's about it. Hopefully this was helpful. One last thing. Let me see here. And I'll share, I think I can share this. Yeah. One last thing here. Let me share. Forgot. I promised I would share this. So this is the landing page. Can you see that?
Oh, yes, can see it now.
Yeah, so this is the landing page for tonight's webinar. If you, again, free consultation, you got to book by midnight tonight. Schedule right here. You can get on our calendar. Our calendars fill up fast, so you want to get on the calendar as quickly as possible. If you are interested in any of our full service packages, you can read about them here. We have a strict financial aid only package. We actually do some admissions support if you're looking for admission support, and we have a combo where you can get both. And again, if you're a DIYer, we got you there too. $4.99 a month. You get a free, you can look up to three schools for free. If that's sufficient, you don't need it. It's three. If you want to unlock it and do unlimited number of schools, it's $5 a month, no contract required. And the webinar recording will be available, I think, in the morning. They usually scrub it overnight. So again, action absorbs anxiety. That's our big saying around College A Pro because this gets very, very stressful, and parents get very anxious about college. It's like, you want the best for your kids, but how are we going to pay for this? A lot of money. So hopefully, we are here to help you, but you got to take some action. And the sooner you take action, the more relief, the faster you're going to get some relief. So talk to us, schedule a meeting. Think about whether or not you want to do this on your own. And if you do, think about a premium membership. And if you talk it over, you're like, I'm not sure we want to do this. We might want to, have it done by experts. You can look through, some of our full service offerings, and we can talk about those on the consult too, if you want to talk about that. So, all right. Well, thanks, Coach. It's always fun talking to you.
Thank you so much, Jason. I always learn so much from
Oh,
you.
same, same. Yeah. It's 8 o'clock for me now. It's bedtime.
Yeah, no kidding. Go to it's no too much dopamine. Put down the phone.
Yeah,
All
right.
right. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thanks for making time
Yeah.
tonight. We hope. Oh,
Go ahead, sir.
oh no, I was just going to say thank you all for coming and reach out. We'd love to be able to help.
Yeah, one last thing I forgot to say is tell your friends about College Aid Pro. If you have friends with kids in this situation, they're probably
Yeah,
stressed.
yeah.
Please pay it forward and let them know that they got some resources out here. So,
And we work with a lot of high schools directly, so fingers
hmm
crossed we can see your high school or another.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, take care, everybody. Make sure you
Good
book
night.
us a consult that we'd be able to help you.